Well, it's the start of the new year. With new year comes new rides, new series, and new projects, hopefully. But before I start any of that, I figured let's start the new year first by giving some much needed love to the unsung hero to all my projects, my video shoots, and the car that brings me to work and brings me home safely. My 2005 Scion XB. Bought this guy back in 2010 with 79,000 miles from a Scion dealership, and it has been my daily driver ever since. 90,000 miles later, it has yet to fail on me, but on the other hand, I had failed it. It's awful, I know, but I barely do maintenance, the one car that I drive 89% of the time. Yes, I've changed out the tires, and maybe in the earlier years of ownership I did the 3,000 mile oil change thing, but recently it hasn't been like that. And if I can remember correctly, the last time I changed oil in this thing was back in February of 2016, right before an autocross event, which by the way I beat a GTR, so there's that. Anyways, let's get to it, starting off with the oil. The guys at the shop were taking bets on how much oil would be in my engine. My guess was 3 quarts. I was dead wrong. Joe, being the good mechanic he is, did a second flush on the oil because of how dirty the old oil was. And he was right to do so because the second time the oil came out, it was just as dirty as the first. Well, almost dirty. 4.5 quarts and a new filter later, I moved on to the belts. Now these belts, they've never ever been changed, at least not under my ownership. And here's a comparison of the new belts and the old belts. As you can see here, they needed to be changed badly. Removal and installation wasn't too bad. Having a lift made life a whole lot easier for me. And remember that corroded battery terminal? You know, that little video I made a few months back? I tried salvaging it, but there was no way bringing that thing back to life. Besides, a new terminal's cheap, so yeah, there's just some things that I'd buy new. And of course, you can't forget about a new air filter. Where was the old one? I never had an old one. So for my final item on my list, well, at least for this video, is the rear hatch latch. Here's a little back history for y'all. The first generation Scion TC and XB suffered from a weak designed rear hatch or trunk handle that broke quite often. And I'm sure you've seen them, TCs and XBs running around with duct tape, or in my case, painter's tape, holding the hatch handle. They did have a recall for it as late as 2013, but mine actually held up all the way until late 2015. And being fed up with having to use the wiper arm as my hatch handle, I figured let's fix this issue now while I'm fixing everything else on the car. The first thing I need to do is get to the bolts and wiring harness that hold the hatch handle in place. If you lift up the hatch, you will see this black interior piece, cardstock thing, being held up by 13 plastic rivets. Once this is removed, you will be able to access the bolts and harness. Plastic rivets? No problem. I'm going to use a skinny flathead that'll do the trick. Okay, 2 skinny flatheads. Wow. Okay, this rivet is on there pretty good. Alright, so I'm going to make a fork-like tool that'll be able to hug the whole rivet head and hopefully, pop it out in one go. Using this dollar putty knife that I had laying around, I'm gonna modify this to make the fork thingy. And there you have it, one rivet popper.
They just pushed in, right? Or no?
Yeah, they're pushed in.
But they don't have the... Wow.
Lucky for me, one of the guys had a tool for removing interior rivets. Hell, even with this tool, I still had to muscle some of them out. And pro tip, remove the center one last, or be prepared to hold up the interior while trying to remove the rivets. Only 2 out of the 13 survived and was in pretty good shape. It's alright, I could probably find these on O'Reilly's or Napa later. But with everything exposed, I can finally get to the bolts. One here and one here with the appropriate socket. Now disconnect the harness for the lights and the electronic latch, then detach the harness itself from the body. It's one of those expanding type rivets, so use pliers to squeeze the back end of it, and then pop them out. Push out the rubber grommet for the harness. Oh, found another rivet that needs to be removed. You're gonna need to save this for later. With all that out of the way, the rear hatch should come right out. Okay, so you can either buy yourself an OEM replacement from a Toyota dealership with the matching color for your car for a few $100, or buy an aftermarket one on eBay or Amazon for less than $100. The unfortunate thing with the latter is that it only comes in two colors, chrome or black. I bought mine on Amazon for less than $30. And here it is. Not bad for $30. This is gonna be the cleanest thing on my car, seriously. And here's a comparison of both the latches. The next thing I'm gonna do is transfer all the guts from the original latch to the new one. Using my stubby Phillip, I first removed the two screws on the latch button, this black rubber thing you press on. Then the screws for the license plate lights. Careful not to strip these ones because they tend to rust very easily. After that, you pinch the plastic tabs on the inside to detach the latch button. This right here is the flaw in the design. This is the thing that, broke quite often, thus having to do this crap. Comparing the two, I realized that the new one looks like an even weaker design, and I could reinforce it with some sort of resin or putty, but whatever. Ain't nobody got time for that. I also noticed this rubber seal around the OEM part and the lack of one on the new one. Again, I don't care. Now to put the guts into the new one. Starting off with the latch button. So this is probably another disadvantage to buying an aftermarket piece. It's not gonna fit 100% of the time. You're gonna have to do some slight modification for the OEM guts to fit the aftermarket one. That's no problem. Quick run through with the file and ta-da. Hopefully I remembered how the wiring was laid out. It's a good thing I got a video to reference all of it.
Shiny and chrome.
Oh, so remember that plastic tab? That goes here. Well, shit. How am I supposed to open the hatch? Man, I'm so smart. Better put something there to prevent it from logging on me. The thing I missed is held on by another 10mm nut. Slip that in place and it's now ready for installation. Feed the harness in, pop the rubber grommet in place, line up the bolts to the respective holes and slide it right through. Tighten 3 nuts and plug in the harness for the lights and latch button. Test to make sure everything is in working order. Latch button does its thing and the license plate lights turn on. When that's all good, pop the interior piece back in place and call it a day. Unfortunately for me, they did not sell the particular rivets I needed for the interior, so I ended up using the broken ones, which worked quite well despite them being bangled pretty badly. And there you have it. Good as fucking new. Okay. One last thing. Promise. The guys at the shop always gives me shit for the rear wiper blades just hanging like that. It's due to them not being replaced ever. I don't know how much a new one cost, and my local O'Reilly's didn't carry a replacement, but luckily the shop sold 13-inch wiper blades for cheap. My plan was to remove the rubber insert blade off this new 13-inch wiper and put it on the XB. The original wiper blades are a lot smaller. I think the 11 inch, maybe 10 inch, I don't know. Removing the blades is easy. I used a needle nose plier to squeeze the little locking clips and it just slid right out. You simply slide the new one on and make sure it's locked in place. And there you have it. And last thing, please, don't be like me. Take care of your daily.